I earnestly call for a change of heart to the government and Azimio. May our President, the Honorable Dr. William Ruto, lead the government side to accept to listen to Azimio. I do the same to the Honorable Raila Odinga, the Azimio leader, to call off the demonstrations and accept a round-table discussions with the government side. This is to be in bed to find a solution of the problems facing Kenyans. Today we gather all these young people together to celebrate the passion of Christ. We want them to build a system of values that is based on Christ, who is the way, the truth, and the life. We want them to learn to endure suffering with patience and without vengeance, to learn forgiveness and tolerance. Our message to them is a message of peace. It is a message of hope. Political leadership must not drive these young people for whom Christ died to the streets for selfish gains. After the demos, they go back home with biting conscience, full of hopelessness and disillusionment, and some of them with physical injuries. We do not know how many will turn to suicide because of desperation after the demos, because of realizing that they have not achieved what they were promised, and that they have been exploited. We earnestly urge you, our young people, do not accept to go to the streets for demonstrations. Even if you are paid, you are being exploited by people who have selfish interests. To all Kenyans, we urge you to refuse to go to the streets, even when urged by political or government leaders to do so. We also appeal strongly to any other person or groups of people who may feel the urge to counter the offensive of Azimio demonstrations, not to come to the streets or to go anywhere else in counter-offensive. Let us all be guided by the message of Christ that rejects all forms of violence and revenge. Jesus says, "Take my yoke upon yourself and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble of heart, and you will find rest in your souls." And God strongly assigns vengeance to himself. He says, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay." Nobody should take vengeance in his hands. We urge would-be spectators to keep off the vicinity of the demos at all costs. Fellow Kenyans, God is greater than any leader, and we must obey God first rather than anybody else. As we look forward to the resurrection of the Lord, the message of peace must ring strongly in our minds. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. This is also a message of hope. Let us all look at life with hope, for the resurrection witnesses to the fact that life can come from death. Indeed, in Christ, darkness does not need to confound us. Poverty can lead to riches, and sickness can lead to healing. We have witnessed the destruction of property and how so many people have been hurt, some innocent caught in the crossfire, others active participants in it. Some people have even lost their lives. The attack on private properties of the former president and the Azimio leader is clearly a backlash, obviously meant to dissuade the former from what he is being accused of, rightly or wrongly, as his role in funding anti-government demonstrations. These demonstrations are unacceptable. At a time like this, when many families in our country cannot put 2 whole meals on the table because of the high cost of living, it is good to ask whether the achievements are worth the cost. Property loss, human injury, and death are too high a cost to be opted for, especially when there are alternative ways of making the same achievements. Violence and death are not an option in a sane society. We are aware of the efforts to bring the warring parties together, first by religious leaders, then also by a high-ranking official of the United States who visited Kenya a few days ago. The fact that the warring parties have continued to hold their hardline stances, these efforts notwithstanding, makes many Kenyans feel a strong sense of hopelessness, and this is coming from our elected leaders and those who would have liked to be elected but were not. Police are supposed to have been trained to react in the proper way with the needed civility, whether ambushed or not. On their part, it is no excuse to use violence that hurts or maims even those citizens who they are controlling, least of all the innocent and unsuspecting. It must never escape the minds of the police, especially their leaders, that the role of police force is public order and peacekeeping. The number of demonstrations, the number of those who are demonstrating is crucial. I believe it should be possible to drastically reduce the number of those demonstrating to a number that is fully manageable. The number that Azimio has been calling onto the streets is practically unlimited, even unknown. So the government fears how to deal with such numbers and therefore prepare counterforce of police. The size of numbers should not be used to instill intimidation to the government or police force. It is not right to obtain any favorable thing by intimidation. Additionally, numbers should not be used as a force to overwhelm the police, because they are at the same time supposed to help in crowd management. The choice of size of the crowd is strategic, therefore, and would greatly help to control the emotional surge arising from mob psychology, especially so that it does not become negative or violent.